I don't know if you've noticed, but we are in the middle of an alien invasion. Or perhaps I should say a national home invasion. Now, some people kind of deny this, but you can't, pictures don't lie. These are people swarming to the border, illegals, coming not just from Mexico, by the way, but from all over South America, and there are even some people who are sneaking in from other countries via Mexico. The numbers are up. In December, 71,000 people were apprehended on the southern border. That number went up to 75,000 in January, 100,000 in February, and it looks like it could be close to 150,000 in March. This is a serious problem. Here is Texas Governor Abbott talking about the problem in Texas.
Let me begin by making one point very clear. There is a crisis on the Texas border right now with the overwhelming number of people who are coming across the border. This crisis is a result of President Biden's open border policies. It invites illegal immigration and is creating a humanitarian crisis in Texas right now that will grow increasingly worse by the day.
Now, I use the phrase home invasion, but it needs to be qualified in a couple of important respects. First of all, in the most case, for the most part, these aren't kidnappers or hostage takers. They aren't even criminals in the violent sense. Now, there are some of them. There are criminal gangs involved. There's MS-13. There are bad guys. There are sex traffickers. There is an element of that. But I'm assuming that the majority of people aren't home invaders of the classic sense. They're more like squatters. They're more like people who decided, you know what? Let's go into this big home called America. It looks kind of luxurious. And let's sort of sit on the couch and let's take advantage of the perks of the home. Let's eat some food from the refrigerator. Let's kind of move in. So that's what's going on. Now, these are people who are acting against the law. But here's the second wrinkle. Not only are they not home invaders in the classic sense, but to some degree you'd have to say they were invited. So how is it possible to be invited into a home against, you may say, the rules of the house? Well, that's because you've got a sort of head of the household, or kind of a crazy uncle, you might say, in this case, Joe Biden. It's hard to deny that he told them it was okay. He told them to come. Now, how did he do this? He did it partly by making all these emphatic election declarations. I will reverse the Trump policies. He turned people away. I'm going to stop that. I'm not going to make them wait in Mexico or other countries for their court dates. I'm going to catch them and release them into the United States where they can kind of melt into the general population. This was Biden. Even his Homeland Secretary on March 1 offered this kind of mixed message, you might say, to these illegals, to these aliens. He goes, we are not saying don't come. We are saying don't come now because we will be able to deliver a safe and orderly process to them as quickly as possible. In other words, you're invited. The invitation may not be for today or tomorrow, but you're our guest. You basically start packing. Start planning on your relocation. We've got a system. We're kind of streamlining it to make it easier for you. So this is a very scary situation because, and of course it's covered up with a web of lies. You get this idea from the media. Oh, Biden is just such an unbelievable humanitarian. He's brought to tears by what's going on he can't bear to separate families. So he's driven by these kind of marvelous motives of sort of the milk of human kindness. Now, the reason this is all so bogus is we all know, Biden himself knows, that if these illegals showed the slightest tendency to swing to the right, to vote Republican, not only Biden, but the Democrats would shut the border down so fast they wouldn't even know what hit them. The border would be turned in effect to Washington, D.C. Tall fences, military presence, no one gets in, you're not welcome, turn around and go home. The Democrats know how to do this. They can close the border. Trump had closed the border, but for the most part, over the past 4 years. So the Democrats had to actively undo that. You may say they had to actively take the wall down, or take what the wall stands for down. And there's an international left, by the way, that's facilitating this whole process. I mean, think about it. These big caravans that come from Honduras and South, how did 2,000 people get organized to move hundreds of miles all by themselves, spontaneously, and then they show up at the border wearing Biden t-shirts? I mean, if you went to, let's say, a slum in India and said, hey guys, show up at the US border, but make sure you wear those Biden-Harris t-shirts, the Indians would look at you like, we don't even know what you're talking about. Somebody supplies them with t-shirts. As these caravans move, the left provides medical care, it provides cell phones and phone cards, it provides all kinds of maps. In other words, the international left with American support is guiding these caravans to the US border. And then, of course, you have the Biden administration in a sense. So Biden has created this crisis. It's not a crisis that he has to deal with. He made the crisis. Now, why did he do that? What's Biden's motive here? What would be the reason for a family member, the head of the family, to sort of provoke, to create a home invasion? Well, the answer is really simple. There's a dispute inside the household, inside the American house, you might say, over who should be in charge, who should be making the rules of the household. And Biden primarily cares about that fight. He doesn't care about the actual aliens. In fact, that's why he doesn't want to go to the border. People go, it's such a mystery. Biden doesn't go to the border. Biden doesn't go to the border because he doesn't care about that. That's not what it's about. What it's about is a fight inside the household over who should rule. And what Biden wants to do is he wants to bring in more people, allies, if you will, potential allies, who someday can vote, who will help to consolidate his hold and the hold of his side on power inside the household. So this is a domestic fight. This is a domestic fight. And you might think about, well, what can we do? How can we help? We seem to be watching helplessly while this home invasion goes on, this alien invasion. And the truth of it is there's not a whole lot that you and I can do. We have to remember that we warned, conservatives warned, Republicans warned, I warned, that if this election turned out the wrong way, it would go very badly for America. And a lot of bad stuff would occur. And so, you know what? We're taking it. I mean, hey, bend over America. A lot of bad stuff is going to come down the pike, and there's not a lot we're going to be able to do about it. We'll do our best. But the truth of it is we want the American people to see this and go, hey, you know what? We didn't sign up for this. We want the American people to realize that this Democratic administration, these are a bunch of very bad characters. And even though they're covered by the media, and the media puts this kind of veil all over them and this halo, it's not that hard to see through the halo. So it's time in the midterm to hold the Democrats accountable. I just hope enough Americans can see. Let's throw Mark Kelly out in Arizona. Let's turn the Senate back over to the Republicans. This at least provides a legislative mechanism to block the Democrats in what they're doing. Otherwise, America is kind of in for it. The Democrats have a plan. They were kind of clear about it, to change not just the makeup, the DNA of the country, to establish permanent one-party rule. And the only question for the American people is this organized decline of America, this destruction, you may say, of our borders, our boundaries, of the house itself, something that you in America have signed up for?